You're listening to the Paranormal Peeps on the Darkcast Network. Come to the dark side of indie podcasts with the Darkcast Network.
We have cookies. Between the realm of the dead and the journeys of the living, join Josh, Jamie, and Elisa as they delve into the vast world of the paranormal and breathe life back into the history of the departed.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. I'm Elisa.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Josh.
And tonight we are finally going to talk about one of our investigations to the old Nevada State Prison.
Yes.
About time.
About time.
Yeah, we went. When was it? April.
April
this
20th.
year. Yeah.
It's only November.
I know.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, well, it takes a while to go through those things and in between life.
Right?
Yep.
A lot of cameras. Well, actually, this wasn't as bad as some of the other places we investigated out there.
No.
A lot of cameras equals a lot of hours to review.
Yes. And this was one of our shorter ones from that week. So that's why you guys get to get it first.
Yep.
Let's get right into it and let's talk about the history of the Nevada State Prison.
All right. The interesting thing is, before it was actually a prison, it was a hotel.
What?
I know, isn't that weird?
It's so weird.
I didn't learn about that until after we had got there.
That is odd.
And I was like, why would you stay here?
Right? Because
what did it look like before? That's what I want to know.
So there was nothing there before. So it was actually built by a man by the name of Abraham Curry, and he was one of the first and certainly the most important settler in Eagle Valley, which is where Carson City is located. So when he arrived in the valley in 1858 from Utah, he purchased the Eagle Ranch for $500 and several Mustang horses. On this property, he built the Warm Springs Hotel using sandstone rock quarried from the site. The other thing he also bought was 2,000 acres and started helping build the town of Carson City.
Dang.
Can you imagine nowadays how much that would cost?
No.
More money than we have.
Or we'll ever see.
Yes. So in December of 1861, the first territorial legislation met at the hotel and created the Board of Prison Commissioners. The board was authorized to lease the property adjacent to the hotel, effective January 1st, 1862. This is the date for the establishment of what was to become the Nevada State Prison. Curry was also appointed the first territorial warden of the prison on that day. So not only did he build Carson City,
He became the warden?
he became the first warden of the Nevada State Prison.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
who was going to tell him no?
Right? So the legislature subsequently authorized the purchase of 20 acres being used as the prison, including the quarry. This purchase was to be effective March 1st, 1864, and Curry was given $80,000 in interest-bearing bonds for the property.
$80,000.
For 20 acres.
Jeez.
So on Halloween, 1864, Nevada was admitted into the Union, which is so cool. Like, how cool to know that, like, your state's statehood happened on Halloween.
Yeah. Cool.
Jamie.
Don't be so excited. So, on May 1st, 1867, a fire occurred at the prison with a total loss of all buildings and all the prison records.
Ugh.
The buildings were rock and mortar structures covered with dry wooden shingles. So it's assumed that the inmates set fire to their shed-like housing. And then in 1870, another fire occurred and a major portion of the institution was again destroyed. This incident resulted in the construction project using quarried stone on the site and inmate labor to build substantial structures. So 2 fires.
Yeah. Burn it down again. You'll just build another one.
Well, I think-
Inmates.
Yeah. I think the first time they're like, okay, we'll build you a new one. We'll make it better. It's like, you did it again. You got to build your own this time.
Yep.
So on September 17th, 1871, the most dramatic event in history of the prison in the 19th century occurred. The captain of the guard was attacked while locking the inmates in their cells on this late Sunday afternoon. 29 inmates participated in this escape, acquiring guns from the armory, shooting the lieutenant governor Frank Denver and several guards, killing 2 people. Most were recaptured. 2 were hung by a posse, and the ringleader was never found.
He just had all those other guys to be caught, and he was just quicker.
Right? So in Mono County, California, there's a place called Convict Lake. And that's where the escapees made their final stand. So there's even a lake named after them. Lucky.
So what do I do? Gotta get... What about hella? I don't even know what I'm saying. What do I have to do to get a lake named after me?
Well, you need to go to prison, escape from prison.
Escape. Okay.
Have a standoff.
And have a standoff at a lake.
Or a pond, whatever.
But it has to be already unnamed.
Okay.
So, yeah, it shouldn't be too bad, right?
I could do that.
Or you can just, get a couple $1 million, buy a lake.
Name it.
And name it after you.
Name it after you.
Yep.
So the following year in 1872, legislation resulted in the repeal of the portion of the Constitution which established the prison as the responsibility of the lieutenant governor. So a new warden was appointed, but the lieutenant governor Denver refused to hand over the institution and refused to allow the governor or any other member of the prison board enter the prison. So he held the prison hostage. Finally, the governor called out the militia in March of 1873. Confronted by 60 soldiers and small artillery, Denver surrendered the institution. You'd think after being shot the previous year that he would have been like, yeah, you know what, I'm good.
Well, apparently not.
The prison, they build stuff. There's an industry inside the prison, right? The primary means of support for the prison during the 19th century was the shoe shop, where inmates were engaged in the construction and sale of footwear. In addition, the institution obtained funds through the quarrying and dressing of sandstone taken from within the perimeter of the institution. Although it was not the major source of income, the quarry had the most profound and lasting effect on the face of Carson City. Public buildings and homes throughout Carson City reflect the prison as a source of substantial construction material. In fact, there were 12 different buildings in Carson City built with sandstone. One of them being one of the original mints. So that's where they, print money.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another massive structure that was mechanic yard for the trains, which is now since gone.
Yeah.
And even Abraham Curry's house was built from the sandstone from that quarry.
Oh, I'm sure he was like, hey, I want you guys to build me a house.
Right? You built a prison, now build me a house.
While you're at it.
So the interesting thing is, because they're digging in sandstone, right? Sandstone has the reputation for being one of the locations where fossils are found the most.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so in the late 1870s, inmates working at the quarry in the prison discovered fossilized footprints of prehistoric creatures.
Dang.
Dinosaurs.
Yes. And then in 1882, the Carson City Sheriff communicated the discovery of the footprints to the California Academy of Science in San Francisco. So the footprints were correctly identified as La Brea fauna of the Paleocene era, but were attributed to the previously unknown race of giant humans.
Giant humans?
Giant humans.
I knew there were giants on the earth, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. At that point, the prints were estimated to be about 2 million years old. Varied interpretations of the origin of these mysterious impressions fueled academic controversy and varied attribution from giant humans to giant sloths. In the end, the sloth advocates won out in 1917. Other prints include mammoths, native horses, large birds, dire wolves, and sloths, big-toothed cats, elk, and deer.
Ooh, dire wolves.
And I'm thinking the big-toothed cats.
Yeah.
Dire wolves would have been awesome.
So the big-toothed cats.
It all would have been cool.
Yeah. We could have both pets. Yeah, one dire wolf and one saber-toothed cat.
Yeah, they'd be squaring off all the time. You wouldn't have a house left.
They're outside animals only. Can't
So
put-
they roam around the neighborhood killing people?
Well, look, if you're silly enough to be outside when the cat comes through, then yes. As late as 2013, scientific study has been carried out on footprints uncovered to the south of the license plate factory, while the fossil grotto had been compromised. The general area is a rich site of historic significance suitable for scientific research and demonstration, which is really neat that the fact that you can still get fossils out of that area today.
So is there, do they have somebody that goes over there and like looks for them, or what's the deal?
I don't know. I didn't look into that too deep. I just know that you can, that's where they came out of. Like, remember when we walked into the prison, it was just off to the right.
Yeah.
So that's where the end of the quarry was. So that's where you can still get all of the fossils. I just don't think that they do any excavations anymore.
I wonder if they just if they let people, how some places will let people go in and for a fee and
dig
a little bit.
I'm guessing they probably won't because it's a historic site and they don't want.
Well, then
you to
why aren't they
compromise.
doing anything with it? Come on.
Jamie's getting feisty.
$10,000 to go dig. It would help the prison out for sure.
Yeah, it would.
I would do it. I think
would.
it'd be so much fun.
I'd go over there just to do that.
Right? It'd be a lot of fun.
It'd be great.
So in 1923, Leonard Fristow and two other inmates accompanied Warden Tom Slater in the warden's car on a trip to Reno. Left unattended by the warden, Fristow walked away and was not heard from again until 1968.
Shame on you, Warden.
Like, I'm taking these guys cross country. I'm going to go, take care. I'll be right back. I'm going to go get some snacks.
Do you ever wonder,
That was on purpose.
if the warden and him didn't have kind of a deal?
It's possible.
Because isn't that odd that he's I'm
It
just going to
had
leave you
to have been
unattended.
on purpose.
Yeah.
I don't for 1 second believe that it wasn't.
Well, maybe he was like a model citizen. And
Oh,
You're
bull.
not in jail and a model citizen.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways.
okay, maybe he was a model inmate.
Model prisoner,
Yeah.
whatever that means.
It means you're the best of the worst. But he was arrested in California after domestic disturbance and returned to Nevada State Prison.
Oh, well, he blew it.
His escape lasted 45 years,
Holy cow.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty impressive, actually.
which was the longest escape and recapture in the U.S. history.
But how much effort was actually even put into finding him in the first place?
Probably not a ton because in 23, right, like their abilities would have been limited.
Sure.
So that's why he got away for 45 years.
Until he did something stupid.
Yeah, and got caught. And then in May 1970, so just 2 years after his capture, he actually received a pardon and was released based upon the split vote of the pardons board. Right?
Oh, this just gets stupider.
Model prisoner. Gets away with crap.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is we all know that gambling is legal in Nevada, right? Well, the prison actually allowed inmates to gamble. They had their own organized and sanctioned gambling. So the wardens provided space for gambling games and established an inmate game owners. This practice is astounding to the modern correctional practitioners as it legitimized an underground inmate economy with the attendant negative opportunities for indebtedness between inmates, coercion, and inmate control of other inmates. So the hiring of the core professional administrators in 1967 resulted in the closure of the casino. But they had legalized gambling. Run by inmates. What could go wrong?
Sounds like a great thing to do to me.
Right?
It's the route I would have went.
I'm sure, honestly, that there is gambling and betting and all sorts of things going on in jails. And
Oh,
prisons.
sure.
So they figured, why not?
100%. Might as
Yeah.
well just go with it, and maybe it'll turn out better than if it's going on behind their back.
Right.
Except that the prisoners run it. So really, they didn't make any didn't make it any better, right? What's interesting, though, is the prison actually minted their own money. So they made these little brass coins, like octagons, and they were $5, $1, $50, 50, 25, 10, and 5 cent pieces.
Oh, cool.
And this is what they used to gamble.
You should just give Monopoly money.
I mean, it's essentially what they did.
Wouldn't that be funny, though, if you just gave a bunch of prisoners Monopoly money and you watch them, like, trade and barter and do everything with their Monopoly money?
Yeah, but could you imagine what would be happening? Like, people would be coming in, like, bringing sacks of Monopoly money in. Like, I don't know why you wanted these 5 games of Monopoly, but here you go.
That'd be so awesome.
So, with most any prison we've been to, right, they've had a form of execution. Like, there's the people who have been on death row, there's a place to give them their final meal and send them on into the afterlife.
Yep.
So this started actually in 1901, and all of the executions at that time were in Carson City, in the prison there, and it was started in 1903. So the first inmate to be executed was John Hancock in September 8th, 1905. So he was unfortunately the dubious one to be the first one to be executed in Nevada. The largest multiple execution in the history of Nevada occurred in 1905 when 4 men, Thomas Gorman, Al Linderman, Fred Wright, and John Sevener, were executed using a double gallows for the murder of a transient that they threw off a moving train while they pilfered the boxcars.
Jeez.
Holy.
Yeah. They just hung them all at once.
I mean, it's efficient.
Yeah.
It's going to work.
Definitely efficient. So 2 Native Americans, one by the name of Indian Johnny, who was a Shoshone, and Joe Ibapoth, who was a Gashute, they were executed using the double gallows in 1906 for a murder of a transient.
Jeez.
Pays not to be a transient in Nevada, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1910, the Nevada state legislature passed a law that allowed condemned inmates to choose between execution by shooting or hanging.
Okay, what'd y'all pick?
Oh, I'd be shot for sure.
100%.
I think shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be shot.
Well,
Does anyone pick hanging?
only one person picked being shot ever.
Only one picked being shot?
Only one.
Why would you want to hang? That seems like torture.
It's great if you break your neck. If you don't, it's 15 minutes to die.
I mean, why take the chance?
Exactly. So Andriza Merkovich was the first and only inmate in Nevada to be executed by shooting. So then in 1921, a bill that authorized the use of gas was passed. So now they could use the gas chamber. 10 men had been hanged at the prison before the gas chamber came about. Condemned murderer Guy Jean of the Hip Sing Tong Criminal Society became the first person to be executed by gas in the United States.
Wow. What an honor.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, someone's got to be the first, right?
Glad I was him and not me.
Exactly. So between 1924 and 1979, 32 men were executed in Nevada's 3 gas chambers. So most of them were done at Carson City or Nevada State Prison, but there were 2 other ones that they were used. So in 1983, it was changed to lethal injection. So in 1985, the serial killer Carol Cole became the first inmate to be executed by lethal injection. And the last person to be executed was in 2006.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that wasn't too long ago.
No. So a total of 12 men were executed by lethal injection in the prison.
That doesn't seem like very many, though.
No.
It doesn't seem like that much, does it?
Mm-mm.
But when you look at when you're in the viewing area where the chamber's at, that wall is lined with photographs of inmates that were executed.
Yep.
There's just a lot of people there. So up until 1964, Nevada State Prison was the only state prison in Nevada. But then they opened up a new one in Northern Nevada Correctional Center. And that started working as a maximum prison until 1989 when the Eli State Prison opened up in Eastern Nevada. So cute. So the decades of 1970 and 1980 were characterized by inmate violence, legal challenges to an antiquated correction system, The institution witnessed several murders of inmates, high-profile escapes, numerous hostage incidents, and the attacks on the staff. So the NSP also became troubled by racial tensions and the rise of prison gangs. The operation of the prison became an issue to the gubernatorial election campaigns of 1982, contributing to the defeat of the incumbent governor. Ultimate control was regained by the hiring and influence of Tom Tamer, the former warden of San Quentin, George Sumner. In the 1980s, the NSP was expanded onto the northeastern bluff. These new housing units proved to be poorly designed, with obstructed lines of sight, minimal opportunity for inmate supervision. These flaws, along with the deterioration of the original infrastructure, encroaching community, and the disordered perimeter, resulted in the phased closing of the institution, and the prison finally closed its doors on May 18th, 2012. So it operated for 150 years.
Not bad.
Not bad at all, which definitely leads to the fact that there's a lot of people that have gone through there, that have died there. I mean, when we took our tour through the prison, we learned about all sorts of people that were maimed or hurt or murdered on the property.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like all over the place.
Yeah, it was a lot.
So, which leads into
Our investigation.
Yeah, exactly.
Dun, dun, dun.
So we started in the culinary / dining room, you know, where everybody went to eat their meals. But what was interesting to me is that there was a fence down the middle.
There was. Like the tables were divided into two sides with a fence in between.
It was two cages,
Yeah.
essentially, is what it was.
Yeah. It was
Wonder
like a
why.
chain link fence.
It was controlling inmates coming and going. So that way they wouldn't have riots and fights and stuff in the prison. Because if you notice in the back where we walked in, there were also two gun nests, and then there were two gun nests.
Oh, right.
So they got to keep people in line. Obviously, with the rise in violence and the gang threats that were happening in there, that it was pretty common practice for people to get into fights and murder people in, well, wherever.
Yeah, you had your enemies and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
So we actually investigated with Paul Welch. He's pretty good about that area and knows it fairly well. He's been there plenty of times. So he kind of took us around a little bit and investigated with us. But we kind of started out with putting every piece of equipment out possible.
Overload.
Well, what's interesting, yeah, because we sat on one side.
Mm-hmm.
And put all of our other equipment on the others.
Yeah,
Yes.
every table had one piece of equipment on it, and there's like
Yeah.
12 tables.
But I mean, if they were to have gone off, it would have been really cool to see all the different pieces of equipment go off.
It would have been.
Can you imagine if they all went off at once?
Oh, that would have been cool.
I think we all would have like freaked out.
Not out of like being
With
scared.
excitement.
We'd be totally excited
Yeah.
about it. I mean, you might get scared, Josh, but Jamie and I.
I would have been under the table.
Save me.
Go outside. Okay, so and we started we heard like a bang on one of the walls. And I started walking around with my tri-field meter
Yeah.
in the beginning. And it was spiking, but then it just like dropped. So, and I was kind of in a corner. And so Josh came over with the meter, but he didn't pick it up.
No, because you were reading like 0.00 something.
Yeah, it was after I dropped. So it spiked
Yeah.
up high and then it like dropped.
Yeah, so because I had walked over, and if you look at a meter only goes to 0.0,
Mm-hmm.
and the tri-field meter goes to 0.00. So it's a lot more sensitive to the EMF than the meter is. And so we got into this conversation about, oh, yours can pick it up, but mine can't.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is Elisa says, you have to be like, and then we got an EVP. And so we're going to play that for you. Oh, I don't go that low. No.
So what does that say, Josh?
It says Satan.
Rude. Play it again.
No.
You can hear at the very end, Satan.
Male voice, yeah.
Yeah.
It's clear.
It's super clear.
It is so clear.
You got to be like, Satan.
That way you can get the readings properly.
Oh, jeez.
We all know he gets the best readings. Come on.
So then right after that, Paul turned on his Echovox, and Paul's name comes out twice
Yeah.
in the Echovox. And then it also says Beth, which I thought was interesting because he talked about having that come through quite a bit.
Yeah.
It started back in Sanquin, Utah, where there used to be a place called the Family Tree Restaurant. And I believe he first heard it there.
Yeah. He's heard it in different
But then
locations.
he's had it through different locations, but he hadn't heard it in a while. And he said something about it like following him or something. Anyway, so I thought that was quite interesting. But the music box started going off, and it didn't stop for a while.
Oh, no, it didn't.
It was going off for a hot minute.
It was. The interesting thing is, one, that music box went off a lot. But it's just an infrared sensor that plays like 3 seconds or whatever of music.
Creepy music.
Creepy
That's
music.
Awesome.
In this case, it's the Nightmare on Elm Street. 1, 2, Freddy's After You, saying the song that was in those movies. But that was off the entrance to Culinary, like to where the kitchen was at.
Yeah, it
And
was
we
like
were
in the doorway.
in the doorway, and nobody was walking through in
No.
that section. So what was setting it off? We really don't know.
Well, I kind of have the same thing here as I was going through some of our videos.
Yeah.
Is, as Elisa said, Paul's device spit out his name. Paul seemed to not acknowledge it, but Elisa, she says, Paul, that just said your name, right? Because he didn't seem to register it.
No, it didn't phase him.
And it did it again. And Elisa's like, I've heard your name twice already. So then Paul proceeds to ask if he says, if you followed me here, how many, I think what he says, because it's really hard to understand the end of it. He says, if you followed me, how many are in this room? And then through that device, there's a female that says 10.
Oh, wow.
Jeesh.
Yeah. So then Paul asks, are you in the hallway? And like within a few seconds, that's when the music box started going off. And it continued to go off.
And then because it continues to go off, we've got the Echovox going off. We have the music box
Yes.
going off.
There's a lot of noise going on.
It was really echoey in there. And then all of a sudden, Jamie's
Ovulus.
went and said what?
It says noisy. Shh. Yeah, it did.
All relevant.
Yeah.
Right.
So then I turn to Paul and Elisa and I tell them, and Elisa's like, no way. And then she comes over to actually look, because the words are up on the screen.
Yeah.
And she comes over to look, and I'm laughing because there was so much noise that in my head, just before it spit out those 2 words, I was thinking,
Too much noise.
there's too much.
Mhm.
Like I was about to scream, turn it off. And so she saw what it had said, but yeah, I've
And-
been thinking the same thing.
Yeah. And then right after that, it said Lisa.
It did. It said Lisa because I think it meant Elisa, but it doesn't necessarily have Elisa's
It doesn't
name.
have my name in there.
But Paul
Yeah.
did mention that there's a gal named Lisa that he investigates with
Yes.
a lot. So we're not sure
Which one?
which one
But
that might
Right.
be.
what I did find interesting because I have an Ovulus as well. And when I very first got my Ovulus, I opened it up and charged it And Alan and I were sitting down in the living room. I turned it on and I said, "Can you say one of our names?"
Right.
And it listed every family member in my house.
Yeah.
It
That's
went in
crazy.
order of birth. So it said Alan, Lisa, well, because it's not going to say Elisa, it just says Alan, Lisa, Mason, Miles. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah. So when stuff like that happens and it's on point, I'm like, oh, dang, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
But Paul then asks, he said to the female that followed me here, "Are you scared to be here?" You know, it being a prison.
Yeah.
And then a female does come through with a response of no.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
That is so neat.
But then later, your ovulus
It does.
goes off again.
Yeah, it did.
And
too.
it's checking Jamie out.
Was this
Well-
before or after Paul and I left?
Before.
Okay.
You weren't even there at this point. You hadn't come back from, I think you went to go use the restroom and get a coat.
No, not yet.
Are
They-
you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Because on the video, he was gone.
I was gone.
He didn't come in yet because I wrote down when he come back.
Yeah, I
Oh,
left.
because I thought you left over into on the other side.
I did later, but I did make 2 trips back. I went back once to get your jacket because
Mhm.
it was warm outside, but
Cold inside.
it was super cold inside.
So this must have been the second time because I was at that point. You can see in the video, I am wearing my jacket, but I don't have it closed.
Yeah, I went back. I think
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Went back and get jackets.
I went to go back and I think it was use the restroom or something.
Yeah. So at this point, you can kind of see me in the background of the video. And you see me look over at my ovulus. She's already laughing. You see me look over at my ovulus. And then you see me look down, and I'm wearing like a V-neck shirt, and it's kind of a lower V-neck. So if it kind of shifts or something, it goes down a little low.
Her ovulus shoots out and is like, "Show chest."
Yeah, 2 words in a row. It said "show chest," like just like that. And so I looked down, and sure enough, there's some cleavage there, and the top of my bra is showing, and I'm like, oh. So in the video, you see me adjust my shirt, and then you see me take the sides of my coat and like wrap it tight around and cover everything up.
She got little peepers
There was a peeper there.
checking you out.
Well, pardon me anyways. But I mean, I remember when it spit out the word "show chest," I remember I got like kind of a weird feeling. And then that's when I looked down and saw. Yeah.
So I had the SLS going and I had it just pointing into the room, like kind of by where the fence was so I could see the screen. And I asked if it would step closer. And when I do that, I capture an EVP of a man exhaling. And it's breathy and quiet enough that I can definitely hear it with my headphones, but not good enough to put on here. But definitely a male exhale. It's like,
Yeah.
when I ask him to move closer, like, really? So, and what was cool was right when that happens, on my recording, listening to this recording, right? And I'm like, there's a white light that just went into my hand. There was a little white orb, like probably the size of a dime.
Yeah.
And it goes, and I watched it go into my palm.
Oh, weird.
Weird.
Yeah, it was weird. I didn't feel anything with my hand.
Sure.
But I saw it go into my palm. And I've never had anything like that. Like, that was weird.
That is odd.
But then that's when we take our bathroom breaks.
Is it?
Josh and I go to the bathroom right after this part. And I leave my recorder
Mm-hmm.
with you and Paul.
Okay.
And you guys are talking about how good it is that the bathroom is close by to where we're at.
Right.
And then I capture another EVP of a female and agreeing with you.
She's like, yeah.
And so you hear her and she's like, yeah.
Can we play that one?
Yep.
Yeah, you hear it just under Paul's voice.
Let's play that again.
Yeah, so
It's really drawn out. Yeah. So then Paul says, there's a point where he says, if you want us to leave, you have to spit it out. And then a male voice comes through and says, sure. And at the same time, my ovulus goes off and says, okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
And then this is the time where Josh comes back in
Right.
on the video. This is when I see you come back in. Then Paul asks if a spirit can make the device go off, and he gets a female response of douche. Because at this point, Josh is like, well, that ain't nice. So, and then I have, like Elisa was saying, we hear the name Beth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that came through a couple times.
It did.
But yeah, we think that's, Paul had mentioned that was somebody or a spirit that does follow him, but he hadn't heard from her in a long time until that night.
Yeah.
And then she came through. And then Josh says, what do you want to do to us? And a response comes through the necrophonic. I think it was the necrophonic that he has running.
He called it an echo box.
Okay, so maybe it was that. But Josh says, what do you want to do to us? And a voice comes through saying, cut you.
That's also not very nice.
That's also not very nice. So at this point, right after this happens, so as I'm reviewing this video, kind of in the middle of the frame, what comes down is what I'm assuming at the moment when I first saw it is dust with light refracting off of it, right?
Sure.
Because we get that a lot. People think they're orbs. No.
Well, and the fact that I had already seen one visibly.
Yes, exactly. So anyways, it comes down kind of quick, right? It comes down quick. As it gets to the bottom of the screen, it slows way down, like in ultra slow motion, and it starts to pulsate.
That's cool.
Yep. It starts to pulsate, and then it comes up a little bit, and then it goes down. It
That's
disappears.
awesome.
Yeah, because normally when dust moves, right, it just follows a pretty predictable pattern based
The flow of
upon,
air
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had seen these through the previous videos that I was reviewing, and you can tell it's just dust. It's falling, whatever wind or air currents there are. This was really distinctly different, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so then this is when Josh and Paul go to take pictures down the hall, because Josh is like, I'm going to go take pictures. I want to go take pictures down.
Yeah, so we go into the back of where the kitchen's at, and
Yeah.
I got to start taking some pictures.
Yeah, and so at this point, Elise and I were kind of discussing that maybe just us girls should stay in the cafeteria area for a few minutes. And so Elisa then says, if you like having just us girls in here, can you make one of these things go off? And that can answer yes or no for us,
Yeah.
Then we get what sounds like a male sighing.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What's crazy though is at that time, as Paul and I leave, we set off the music box in the hallway,
Yes.
so you can hear the music box go off, and then we get this EVP, and it's really low, so it's really hard to play on this. But we get an EVP that comes through and says, "Who's left?"
Yeah.
Is
And which is funny because you guys were
Out the door.
out the door and it was just Elisa and I
Yeah.
left in the cafeteria.
So I was wondering who's left.
Yeah.
That really makes me want to do a live EVP session in there.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
If we go back, I'm
We should.
100% doing a live EVP in there.
yes,
Heck yeah. So,
with less stuff going off.
yes.
Zero stuff going off.
Yes.
So at a certain point in one of the videos, it sounds like there's a couple of really light footsteps.
Oh,
Paul and Josh are
gone.
gone. I can't even hear them at this point
Yeah.
at all. Their voices are nothing. And it's just Elise and I. And you can see clearly we're both in frame of the video.
Yep.
And we're just sitting there. We're not moving or nothing. And Elisa says, man, the temperature has dropped like 3 degrees in the last hour, meaning it's just getting colder out. Obviously the sun's going down.
Yep.
Yep.
And then Stacy and Karina come in. And at this point, we start packing up to kind of move to our next location.
Right. So while you two were alone, so we had 2 cameras set up. We had this full spectrum that had Elisa and Jamie in view, and we had this other just IR camera pointed on all the fun devices on the other side. So after Paul and I leave, and somewhere there where Jamie hears the footsteps, Elisa says, you were saying real loud, and then she pauses and then says my name, because that was coming through either the echo box or the necrophonic, whatever was being played.
Yeah.
And there's a male voice that comes through that says, did you enjoy? And it's right in the middle, so it's really hard to hear. But this starts off this crazy sequence because Jamie responds and says something. It's because of the camera's off to the side, it's real echoey, so I couldn't quite make out what she says. But then this male voice comes through and says, Element 35. No idea what this means.
Okay, hold on.
But what's crazy is there's a female voice that responds immediately afterwards that says, on left. So it's like they're having some form of conversation.
Well, it's like somebody's like, Element 35?
Okay, so that's bromine.
Bromine?
Mm-hmm. Element 35 is bromine.
Maybe just, hey, bro.
Maybe that's his name, bromine.
Could be.
You never know.
But it was right after she says on left, which is interesting because to the left of the camera, there was a loud bang that happened in there. And it sounds like it's coming from the roof. Like something was banging on the roof. When I asked our guides there, our people that were there in the prison with us about it, they said that the top of the culinary is a foot thick of concrete.
So it couldn't have been.
It was nothing on top.
Oh, dang.
That's cool.
That's super cool.
That's good to know.
Yes. And then Elisa asks, can you come stand by me? And then we get a male voice that says, not yet. And then a second male voice comes through and says, get outside.
Jeez.
And then that's followed by 3 like breathy sounds in a row. Just
weird.
So freaking cool.
Yeah. It's so neat.
Awesome.
I'm going to cut this and put it together so we can get it up on our YouTube channel so you guys can see it and listen to it, because it will play a lot better with audio and visual than just us talking about it. But it was so neat. And the thing is that was just the start of the night.
It was.
Well, and things like that don't happen as often as people think they do.
No, they don't.
Especially in a session like that.
Yeah, it was real, like just bang, bang, bang. It was a minute of almost rapid fire EVP style, which is very odd.
Which is also cool, but because it tells you that there are multiple entities in that room with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which goes in line with the how many of you were here, and the answer was 10.
Yep.
So yeah, we moved on. And where do we end up? Where do we go from culinary?
Well, we went to the gas chamber area.
We did. We went to the execution chamber.
Yes.
Which has been converted over now to lethal injection.
Right.
So instead of having the chairs in there was the
bed.
The gurney.
Yeah, with the straps.
Yep.
So Elisa and I actually set up in the actual room, right?
Yep.
And Josh and Paul go outside of the room and they go in a cell.
With Stacy and Karina.
Well, Stacy and Karina were in that cell. They were in the last cell.
They were, so we went into what's called the last night cell. So we decided to do an Estes method in the execution chamber area. Obviously, we can't be in the actual chamber. We're not allowed in there.
No, but Elisa and I were just kind of outside of it.
We were in the viewing room.
Yeah.
The family viewing area.
That sounds like such a nice place to be. Family viewing area.
Watch why we kill this person.
Right. And Paul and I were in one of the last night cells.
Yes.
And Stacy and Karina were in the other.
Yes.
And so we decided to do an Estes method. But instead of being in the room asking questions, we did it over phone call.
Yeah, we separate.
Yep.
Which is not the first time we've done it separated, but it is the first time we've done it without trying to use walkie-talkies to do it, because that did not work.
Thank goodness.
That did not work, yeah. So Elisa had the headphones on, and she was scanning through the
spirit box.
Yep, the spirit box. And so Josh and Paul are sitting on the bed in one of these cells. And Josh says, "Do you like being able to talk to people?" And then from the other room, the viewing room where Elisa and I are, you can hear Elisa say, "I can." And yeah, it says, "I can." And then Josh says, "Will you go into the last cell and say something to the people sitting in there?" Which is Stacy and Karina.
Yeah.
And then you hear Elisa reply, "No." So at this point, and this was just the videos I reviewed from one end. And at this point, Paul gets up because he's got to stand up because his back's starting to hurt. And he kind of walks through the cell door and like just off to the right, but you can still see him in frame of the camera. And the music box goes off. And then Josh says, "Oh, you must have triggered it." And to which Paul replies, "It's at the end of the room, dude. Like it was in another room. Like there's no way he could have triggered that."
Yeah, it was actually... So in the cells, there's a room that leads into what was the gas chamber, the execution chamber, and then to the right goes into the control room. And we actually put the music box in the hallway leading into these two rooms that also leads into the viewing area. So it was actually out of the way. Nobody was out in that area.
Yeah, but the thing is it just didn't go off once. It continued to go off
Quite a few times.
so many times. And at this point, where Paul is standing, which is just outside of that cell, he's not moving like at all. You can see him clearly on camera. He's not moving. And so then Josh proceeds to say, "Who's coming down the hallway?" And then you hear a very quiet and quick "me." And I'm not sure what that's. Yeah. Like EVP. It says "me."
That's awesome.
That's all it
cool.
says. So then Josh asks, "Do you think about your life before you died?" And then you hear a very quiet one-syllable response that I could not make out at all.
That's always tough.
Mm-hmm.
They're not always easy to make out.
No. And sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just can't. And so then things kind of go quiet for just a little bit. And Paul says, "Are you done talking to us?" And then you hear what sounds like a hiss.
Oh.
And so I went back and I replayed this over and over. I wanted to make sure that like when this hiss happens that Paul's not moving.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that Josh wasn't moving. And they weren't. But it sounds like really close. Like super close to the camera.
Jeesh.
So
And hissing is actually, I don't want to say it's common, but I've probably been hissed at, geesh, a good handful of times.
Oh, yeah.
You have. I remember a couple of them.
Audibly.
Yes, very audibly. But here's the thing with this hiss, okay? Paul doesn't react to it at all. Josh seems to.
Oh, really?
But he says nothing. But you see him, like you hear this, like, hiss, and then you see him like,
oh, like he heard something.
yeah, he's like looking over where the camera's at. So he reacts to this.
It's because you're psychic.
But he says nothing.
Like Sean Spencer. I'm psychic.
Yeah, he just quickly turns his head. So there's a
dead.
there's a clear reaction. So at this point, we all decided to do a session. Paul says we should we all go in the viewing room and all do a session in there? And Josh gets up to leave the cell, and Paul's already wandered off. And this isn't paranormal. I mean, call it what you will. But Josh stops in the doorway and he says, "Uh-oh." Then he lets out a violent machine gun fart. And so personally, I really just want to apologize to the spirits that might have been standing behind him. Because
Are we surprised?
it was violent and it was like machine gun going off. Well, because he goes, "Uh-oh," and then you hear it. But then after it, he's done, then he proceeds to walk out of the cell. Out of the doorway, and Paul goes, "Uh-oh, what?" And then Josh just starts talking about something else. And that's as far as I got.
This seems to be a theme every time we go ghost hunting.
Yes.
Isn't it?
It's a theme.
It is.
Yep.
It definitely is. But yeah, that Estes method lasted 35 minutes.
Yeah, it was
Holy
pretty-
cow, that's a long one.
Yeah.
It was a very long one. And there were some very
Relative?
relative responses. Yeah. There was also some very vulgar ones.
That
mean,
was one of the more vulgar ones that we've had in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in prison. I mean,
Well, exactly.
you know.
What's interesting though is like because we're going through radio stations, we know that these vulgar responses they're not coming through the radio. They have to be spirit voices because the FCC would never allow you to say F you on the radio.
No.
Yeah.
Although that
exactly.
came through twice.
Yep.
And in fact, one of them was I asked the question or someone asked the question, did you walk into that? And then
Your fart.
That's what I was gonna say.
Right? And the response came back, and this is a long one. It's not the longest one, but it's definitely a long one. And Lisa's response was, let's go back to the way it was, back from today. And then it goes, I plan to F that.
Oh, jeez.
So it's like, oh, this is really neat. Like, let's remember something. And then it's like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I do remember that there were
Many.
many voices coming through.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And generally you can pick, there's, one or two that come through that you remember. And as you're going through the stations, that just continually goes through every station. It's the same voice. But for this one, it was a lot. I remember there being a lot. And it's very clear when they come through.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works. I don't understand it because I'm scanning radio stations fast enough. There's no way I'm getting full sentences. There's no way.
No.
No.
I'm not sitting on a station for that long. This is an example of how fast it's going. It's going. That is per station. So there's no way I'm getting any full on sentences out of that.
No.
Not a chance.
So when you get these full sentences, they're pretty darn clear. And sometimes these full sentences are coming when you're not even getting any radio stations coming in.
Yep.
Yes.
And it's like the really low, I don't even know what the scale of it is, but the low numbers on the FM stations.
Oh, 88s, 89s,
Yes.
90s. Those, yeah, they're not used a lot.
Yeah. And then it'll go up to the super high ones, and it's just like, there's no way. There's
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah. So what's interesting is you had this one, and the question was asked. I asked, "Are you stuck here?" Seems a very, tamer question, right?
Yeah.
The response that came through was, "Get bent," and then it goes on, and it's, "I'll pulverize you, and execute you, and attempt it."
Geesh.
And then Elisa's response was, "Oh, that was a long one."
Yeah.
And Jamie's like,
That was a lot.
"That's a lot." And then we got an EVP. So I'm going to play it because it is a very interesting female voice that comes through.
Are you stuck here?
Get a gun. I'll pulverize you and execute you and attempt it. Oh, that was a lot. That's a lot.
I love it.
Yep. Really high pitch. Yep. Doing a little Mariah Carey in there.
A little bit.
Octave higher now. Geesh.
But yeah,
That was a pretty awesome session.
It was.
it was. That was an awesome session. And that's still really just in the beginning of the night.
It was. It was still early.
So then we all get back together, and Paul is using the dowsing rods, and he asks to have them point to the person that he's talking to in the room, because there's all those pictures on the wall,
Yeah.
and it points to David Blackwell. And what's interesting is, so he was executed because he shot 2 detectives. And then he was done and didn't talk anymore. So I actually looked him up, and I looked him up, and someone else had gone in there a different time and done an EVP session and got his name through an EVP.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting because I think it validates who hangs out in that room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there was a big article on him. And in the article, it was, of his death in the newspaper. It said that there were at least a dozen Reno policemen crowded to the observation window. But immediately in front was Eugene Cowan. He was the one who shot and wounded Blackwell after he emptied his gun into the officers. But listen how they describe the interaction. Quote, with a firm, thin line on his face, the handsome, dark-haired youth recognized Cowan with a nod of his head and a wink in his right eye. An instant later, the cyanide pellet suspended by string under the white death chair was dropped into the pot of sulfuric acid to create the lethal fumes. The boy took a deep breath and apparently was unconscious within 3 seconds. Within 5 minutes, his respiration had stopped, and 4 minutes 4 minutes after was pronounced dead.
Wow.
Can you imagine? That's the last thing you do is make that little smirk and a wink.
No.
Oh, what a
jeez.
creepy dude.
No kidding.
So all in all, there were 42 witnesses.
That's not a big room.
It is not.
Mm-mm.
I don't know how they fit 42 people in there.
Standing room only.
Yeah. So Cowan said while he was standing there, quote, the day he shot Roy and Alan, I promised him I would be here when the time came.
Wow.
Dang.
That's pretty powerful.
And yet he's the one who looked at him and was like, wink. I mean, I don't know why he's the one winking, because he's the one about ready to die.
I don't know. If we go back, we'll have to ask him.
Maybe.
It would be an interesting way. It would be an interesting conversation to try to have.
I mean, it sounds like a smarmy little, you know what?
Oh, yeah, for
Well,
sure.
Sure,
we
you
are.
know.
You are in prison, so
I know.
everybody's
but even,
smarmy there.
No, but what I'm saying is, how smarmy do you have to be, strapped to this table or whatever? You're about to die,
Yeah.
and that's what you do.
I think he's sitting on a chair.
Yeah,
they're
and
sitting
they
in a
drop
chair.
it into the thing.
Uh-huh. Because I mean, I think for most people, when they're getting ready to die, it's like they have a come to Jesus moment
Sure.
and hope that their sins are washed away.
Yeah.
Not, I'm going to go till I die and I'm going to smirk and wink at, the guy that shot me.
Yeah. I'm not just talking about,
But I'm the one who killed his friends.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not just talking about like being in prison. I'm just saying you're literally going to die.
Yep.
And you know it. And there's people gathering around to watch it.
Yeah.
You're pretty smarmy and cocky to do that.
Yep.
Well, it shows you that definitely there was no remorse.
No, there wasn't.
Well,
And
and
that
he was
happens
young.
Well, that makes you wonder, though, too, then, like, a lot of people who, at least especially now, who are executed, right? They
Mhm.
spend decades on death row.
Yeah.
This kid was 19.
He was young.
Okay, so
Holy
he did not
moly.
spend long on death
No.
row before they executed him.
Mm-mm.
Nope.
Wow.
He's a youngin'. I wonder how old the youngest is that has been executed there. I wonder if he's one of the youngest ones. He's
At
gotta
the prison?
be. Yeah.
I probably. Unless there was an 18-year-old.
But I mean, I would say that would be probably pretty on point for a teenager.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
an ornery teenager.
Yeah.
I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Maybe not with like a 14-year-old, or not 14. I don't know why I said 14. A 40-year-old or a 60-year-old. But teenager, yeah, I could see that.
I think it just depends on the person themselves.
For sure.
Because, I mean, in today's day and age, like you can watch these videos of these young teenagers getting sentenced, and some just break down and
I want my
Start-
mom.
hyperventilating
Uh-huh.
and are, just go crazy. And then there's other ones that, will stand up and smile at the family that,
Yeah.
Confident as crud and
Yeah.
not having any worry.
basically saying, yeah, I ain't sorry I killed, your
Yep.
loved one.
I have a feeling that's the kind
again.
he was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So do you guys have anything else?
No,
No.
because remember at this point, I go back with Karina.
Mm-hmm.
So I got nothing.
Yeah, and we kind of split up.
Well, we went down to the women's cell block.
We did. I didn't get anything from there.
Oh, that's right. Because I was sitting in there with Karina
Yeah.
in one of the cells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went by myself.
Yeah, you were down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And all the guys were in like this, like, I want to say community cell. It was actually like where all the fresh meat would come in,
Uh-huh.
and they'd spend their first night there in this like big open cell.
Before they got distributed.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we were all sitting there. All the guys were there, and it was pretty quiet on our end.
You guys were loud, but it was pretty quiet all around, I think.
Yeah.
That's because you can hear.
It was so echoey anyway. But I ended up like not even, I started doing an EVP session and then I was like, oh, this isn't even worth it. Because
No.
I could hear everybody.
Yeah, it didn't take much. The
No.
echo was so
Mhm.
horrible.
And I didn't get anything either when I was trying to listen for EVPs. Nothing.
Yeah. And that's when we decided to split up.
Yep.
Yep.
So then where did you guys go?
So we actually came back and went back up to the death chamber and put a camera on the control room door. Because when we were leaving the last night's cells, we noticed that the door was closed. But Paul had to open the door to go put a piece of equipment on the control panel. And he didn't close the door. And so we're like, well, that was kind of cool. I wonder if it did it on its own. What happened?
Yeah.
Right? So we got a third camera, put it on the door, opened it, and then left.
Yeah, because you can hear you guys leaving.
Yeah. And it wasn't 3 minutes.
It's legit as soon as you guys leave.
As soon as we leave,
As soon as you leave.
it starts moving. And it takes a full 3 minutes for that door to close.
Mm-hmm.
And
Isn't it like a big iron door?
It's
heavy.
heavy.
It's 50 pounds. It's a massive iron door. And so we come back, and of course I'm all excited because the door closed. I'm like, oh, we caught that. And we did. And so I reopened the door, and we tested it, right? So like
Try to debunk it.
we tried to debunk it, just to make sure like, oh, a building can be uneven, right? Doors can
Sure.
close on their own.
Sure.
So I walked behind the door and kind of like opened it part way, and then I hit it with my hand and started hitting it. And you can see the door move an inch, then a couple inches, and eventually it does close on its own, but you have to be almost all the way closed for it to finally start to swing on its own.
Yeah.
And so it moved a good, 80 degrees in the arc before it closes the final 10 degrees on the door.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I reopened the door, we reset it, we left, and it doesn't move again the rest of the night.
Nope.
But that was cool to catch it that one time, though.
The one time I've never caught anything moving on its own ever.
Yeah, that was pretty
so
cool.
Yeah. But we ended up investigating other places, and we didn't really get anything. It was pretty quiet for us.
So Stacy and I ended up going to D Block, and we had an amazing time in D Block. So just him and I, and we were told that there was whistling that happens in there. And I knocked and I did like the shave and a haircut. Da, 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 da. And I got a 1 knock response right after. And so I asked if there's someone there that can make a noise. And then I got a couple knocks but they're on the bars themselves. It's not like there's anywhere else for the knocking sound to happen, because if you hit a knock on the cement, it's not going to really make a noise.
No.
No.
Nothing that's going to I'm going to be able to hear. So these knocks are happening on the bars, and it got really quiet. So then we started to talk about it. And right after we started hearing pretty good knocks again and bangs. I mean, they were just, it wasn't when something settles. Your house makes noises, buildings, they make noises, and you get pretty used to the noises that they make, and it's all familiar. We had been in this building for a while, and I know every place is going to be different, but we were sitting in the D block for a while with nothing. And then all of a sudden it was like boom, 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 boom on the cell blocks or on the bars.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So, but they were happening on the other side of the block. So Stacy and I moved to the other side of the cell block where all the knocks were coming from. And it was only a few seconds after we sat down that we got a loud bang. And we were like, what? That's so good, right? Because it sounded like somebody took like another bar and just whacked it on the door.
So like metal on metal.
Yeah, like it was pretty good. Let me see if I can play that for you.
Oh yeah.
That's super loud. And it was like right behind us. So then I do shave and a haircut because the last time I did it, I was on the other side and it sounded far away, right? So I did shave and a haircut again, and I will play that for you too. I'll play that response. But mind you, my stomach is just starting to growl and it's not stopping when it's so frustrating.
It happens often for all of us investigating.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll play that for you. So you'll hear me talk about my stomach growling.
Let me do it one more time. My stomach is growling. Oh my gosh, shut up.
So there was 1 and 2.
And more stomach.
And more stomach. Stomach's responding to it.
So I'm like, oh, my stomach is growling. And right when I say that, there's a knock. And then a couple seconds later, there's another knock. Anyway, so cool. I don't know if I've ever had shaving a haircut respond that well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, usually it's really faint. And sometimes you got to wonder, like,
Was that real?
yeah, did I just want it to happen that bad?
Did I just imagine it?
Okay, so since it was tapping so much, we tried to use it as a yes and no. So instead of getting out rods or instead of getting out any other piece of equipment, we're like, hey, you like tapping? Let's just go with that.
Yeah.
And so I said tap 1 for yes and tap 2 for no. And I said, is it hard for you to communicate? And we got 2 taps. And mind you, these are right on cue.
That's so
Okay,
cool.
That's awesome.
These are not, okay, wait a minute. And then, oh, I think that was the answer to it. No, these are, is it hard for you to communicate? Done. And then I said, is this an easier way for you? And it did 1 tap for yes.
Wow.
And I said, did you only serve part of your life in here? And it said 1 tap. So yes. Did you get out when you were old? 1 tap for yes. Do you just like to hang out here? 1 tap for yes. Did you like to play basketball? You're just going through random questions that said 2 taps for no. And I said, do you still see your family? 1 tap for yes. Is your family still alive? 1 tap for yes. Can you leave here? 2 taps for no.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then it got quiet for a while. And then I asked if it was done with us, and it said 1 tap for yes.
Huh.
So we left.
That's cool.
Uh-huh.
That's really good.
You know,
Yeah.
it's interesting because we talked about this in our last episode about the prison, about the old Montana State Prison, about prisoners being stuck in prison
Yeah.
after death. And there again, it's another similar answer saying that they can't leave prison even after death.
And I wonder why that is.
I don't know. Maybe it's just their eternal punishment for.
Maybe. I don't know. It's interesting, though.
It is very interesting.
It raises questions.
Yes. Lots of questions.
Yeah.
Well, see, and I also wonder, too, if it's something where, I I know that some people, when they go to prison and they leave, it's like they don't know what to do with themselves
Mhm.
and with their life. And if you get out, he says he got out when he was old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you do at that point
Oh, exactly.
for a job or for any type of lifestyle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I've heard much more modern stories of where prisoners have gotten out. They didn't know what to do.
Purposely went
so
back.
They purposely committed a crime to go
Mhm.
back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was highlighted in the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Red was talking about that before
Mm-hmm.
he hung himself.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if if in those cases, if that's just what it is. It's like, well, I don't really know what to do with myself. I know this place better than I know any other place.
Yeah.
Right.
This is more what I call home. So
I'm
gonna
going to
be
stay
here.
here.
Yeah.
So then Stacy and I go over to Maximum in the bullpen, and I take out my Ovilus, and it says Europe. When we did the tour, they said they actually got a lot of people from Europe, which I thought was interesting.
Well, that is interesting.
So I brought out a second recorder that only records when it hears sounds, but didn't catch anything. In here, we were getting a few knocks, and I asked if it was just too loud in here, and I got a really deep sounding knock. And then we did the same ask and answer that we did in D Block with the taps. And I said, did you stay in your room while everyone was out? Because I got a sense that this guy was kind of a loner.
Yeah.
And it said 1 tap for yes. And I said, did you just try to stay alive? And it was 1 tap for yes. And then again, it went really quiet. And it almost felt like that one didn't have enough energy to communicate. And I think that's fairly common. Some entities have more energy
Yeah.
than others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such in life. My husband has way more energy than I do. But that's all we got in that one. And then still in maximum security, when we went over to the cell blocks, and Stacy and I started talking about what they did to get in there, and we heard 4 footsteps
Oh, dang.
audibly. We were just sitting there. Toot, 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 toot.
That's awesome.
It was so freaking cool. And then right after that, I felt something touch my hand.
Ah.
Yeah. And then right after that, Stacy saw down the hall a shift in the light that something blocked it, and then it got darker.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
So we tried to debunk it, and we couldn't. There was nothing that we could do to debunk it. The windows were high enough. There's no way that anything could have been outside.
Right.
It was inside, blocked the light, caused the end of the hallway to get darker. And that only happens when there's something that's either forming or has already formed and is standing there or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Would have been so cool to have the SLS on that.
Oh, that would have been so
Right?
awesome.
That would have been so cool. But then I went into the cell block, closed all by myself. And that's when we started doing another Estes method.
And you recorded it this time?
I recorded it this time.
Hey.
So you guys say, why don't you come talk to us? And I said, like it was mine, he wasn't nice. You say, do you like any of the guards here? I say, stop it. Then my stomach is growling. So I don't know if it was saying like, stop it to my stomach or stop it to you guys.
Definitely your stomach.
You definitely.
Do you hate the guards? The answer is Tom. Then, did you like the warden? Answer, probably. What crime did you commit? You asked for it. Did you ever eat their special diet? You think? Do you belong to the area? Only you. Are you innocent? Bartender, Brian. So this goes to show you that not everything goes the way that you hope it does.
No, it doesn't.
Can you make a noise for us? No chance. Why are you in solitary confinement? I looked forward to it.
Wow. Okay.
Were you scared for your life? Is that why? Maybe. You're not snitching now. Obviously. Why do you stay? You're an ass.
You're a donkey?
You're an A-word.
You're a donkey.
Why do you think I'm an a-hole? The answer, you should know.
Wow.
If I told you to go eat an apple, would it make you mad? Animal. What's your spirit animal? Don't you know? It's like little snarky remarks, you know?
Right.
Like, I'm not going to tell you these anyways. And then you say, I don't know who the heck you are. And then I say, come take me. You said, I saw you, ... And I couldn't understand what you said, Josh. And then I said, a riot. And then you said, were you in a riot or are we a riot? And I said, yes, it was. What was your prison number? I said, lightning. Lightning, are you mad at us now? Then I said, I keep trying to keep her happy. It didn't work. You said, did you join a prison gang and it got you killed? I said, her life and the dog. And then you said, let's call it. And I said, yep.
Well, some of that was really good.
Yeah.
Some of it was random, but there was a good patch in there.
Yeah.
Which you're going to get random. It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely
I don't
gonna
know
happen.
if you're ever going to get an entire session where you don't get at least one or two random spots in it.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you gotta wonder, like, are they responding to, something else? Are they
Sometimes they're just talking to each other
exactly?
and they're having conversations with each other.
Well, yeah. We've had that before too, where it seems like spirits are just talking amongst themselves and not paying us any mind.
Oh, exactly.
Uh-huh.
We've had that a lot.
Many times. But that was all I got. That was the end for me.
Yeah.
It was such a fun investigation.
It was. And this was, so when we did this trip to Nevada, this was the shortest length of time we had to investigate was at the prison.
How
Well,
many hours did we get?
6.
And
Mhm.
like 2 of them was for
Was
the
a
tour.
tour.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So technically 4.
The tour, I'll say this though. The tour was a lot of information. It was amazing
Yes, it was.
because the guy that showed us around was an actual guard at that
Yeah.
prison.
Very informative.
So he knew a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He did. And we got to see it from from a guard's perspective,
Yes, we did.
which was interesting.
Which you don't get very often.
You
No.
do not.
No.
Anytime we've ever gone to a prison and we've had these tours, it's always been Jimmy's robot. It's always been through people who have been trained to say the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah. The historians, this
Uh-huh.
is
Not
what you
this guy.
say.
This
Yeah.
guy just goes off, and I'm sure he knows exactly what he's going to say, but it's his experiences, which is awesome.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
It was really cool.
That was technically our last investigation on that trip. Was
Technically was.
Hmm.
Even though we kind of investigated the next night, but
Yeah, I mean, our last stop for the night was the
Silver Queen.
Silver Queen hotel, which is lovely.
That's
I mean-
interesting.
The staircase and the hallway.
Your guys' bed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We didn't really, so we had gone all week and, we had a
1 day off.
16-hour investigation. We had a 14-hour, there was a lot.
And we were tired.
And we were
Yeah.
tired and we were just kind of nearing the end. And so we didn't do a lot or barely any investigating of the Silver Queen.
No.
But we did stay a night there.
We did. It was a night. I don't think the beds have been changed in 100 years.
No.
So it's been interesting.
You guys were like a taco.
Oh,
It
yeah.
just like folded you right in.
It was so hilarious. Well, because see, the guys went to have a drink down at the saloon, and Elisa and I went to the room, and she had the front room, which had a bed, and then Josh and I had the back room. And I went back there to lay down to try and take a nap. I was so exhausted, and I didn't end up taking a nap. But later that night, when Josh had come back, and when he got in a bed, like that thing folded up like a taco, like he got in his side of the bed, and I was on mine. And the minute his butt hit there, And his torso, like I rolled right into him, and like the ends of the bed were up.
It was funny.
It was quite hilarious.
It was quite hilarious.
And the thing is because we're so tired, we laughed about it forever.
Yeah.
We're deliriously tired, but it was a good time.
It was a great time.
And we tried doing like rods, and we tried doing the portal, and we tried all the things.
We got a little bit on the rods and stuff. The problem was our hearts just,
We were not in it.
we were just not in it.
I just don't think any of us had the energy anyways.
Yeah.
No.
So, and I am sure spirits can feel that as well
Yeah.
and be like, they're just.
But wasn't there somebody while we were hanging out in the room? Wasn't there somebody like down the hall with their rods, sitting in the window?
Oh, I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure there was.
First floor.
Oh, first
when
floor.
we were coming in, when we were moving our stuff in, there was someone on the first floor
Oh, okay.
investigating.
Yeah.
Which, mind you, when we say the first floor, this is also 30 steps up from the
steep steps,
from
man.
from the sidewalk and the street. So it was still a heck of a trance up to get up there.
Oh, it was. And we were all so
I
tired.
was so tired. I think I did like 400 steps or stairs that day. It was awful.
Well, but what was weird is in the morning when we were hauling stuff out, one of the gals that cleans the rooms there,
Yeah.
she went into, the room straight across from ours. The door was ajar about that much. Now, I remember hearing people go in there in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we heard it. They sounded drunker than drunk.
Oh, yeah. They were smashed. Right?
Yeah.
Well, she pushed the door open, and I'm standing right there in the hallway because she was talking to me, and she pushed the door open, and that room hadn't been touched. Nobody slept in the bed. Nobody used any of the towels. No trash, no nothing. No wrinkles on the bed, no nothing.
Did they pass out on the floor?
Nobody was in there.
Oh, that's weird.
Nobody was in there, but she said it was a sold out hotel. We heard them.
Mm-hmm.
We all heard them go into that room.
You don't think they like made their bed real nice and neat, do you?
No.
Not with how drunk they were. They
I got
their rockers.
See, I used to do that for a living.
I know
Clean
you
rooms.
did.
So I went in there and she's looking around. I'm looking and I'm like, that's kind of weird. I said, I swear we all heard them go in there.
I'm wondering if they didn't go in there and go, nope, and went back to the bar and drank all night.
Oh, man.
Maybe.
They totally could have, because
Yeah, it was just
I mean,
really weird.
I looked into the room and I was like, oh, okay.
Because
Yeah,
there
the rooms
is
aren't anything. Yeah, they're not anything to write home about.
No.
That's for sure.
the whole town closes down at like 5:00 at night, except for one bar casino
Well,
that
except
stays
for on
open
the
24
weekends.
hours. Right. But that one place stays open
Yes.
24/7.
Yes.
And so they could have stayed there and drank all night long.
Maybe they did, but it was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like nothing had been
I don't know. I
touched.
didn't hear him leave.
Well, see, that's just it. I didn't either. But I heard him come
Oh, we all
down
heard
the
him.
hall. And see, we're the last rooms on each side of that hall.
Yeah.
We are the last ones. We're on one side, they're across from us. Yeah.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So one more thing about the prison. It's been in several movies.
Oh, that's right. It has.
But what's interesting about that is the first movie was in 1921
Mm-hmm.
and the last one was 2017, but all the rest of them were in between that time frame. It was still an operational prison.
Yeah, do you use them as extras?
Maybe. Or was the whole prison still in operation or just parts?
Well, probably just parts.
yeah.
So there's several movies, and I haven't heard of any of these movies, but there are 3 movies that have fairly famous people in them.
Okay.
So one was called Death Watch in 1965. That had Leonard Nimoy in it, which, for all you Trekkies out there, that was Spock.
Well, if they're a Trekkie, they know that.
Exactly.
For
those
all
that-
you that aren't Trekkies,
it's Spock.
it's Spock.
There was another movie called An Innocent Man, and that had Tom Selleck in it.
I like Tom Selleck.
Me too.
And I saw the picture from that movie. They were in the yard
Oh, okay.
by the basketball courts. They were
Yeah.
standing right there.
Nice.
And then there was another one called Flesh and Blood from 1979, and that had a very young Denzel Washington in it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was the one in 2017?
That was called The Mustang. Never heard of it.
No.
And that was actually produced by Robert Redford.
Right on.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So there's quite a few then.
There's quite a few.
I wonder why they picked that one.
I don't know. It's a good question.
Maybe they were the cheapest.
Could be. Or just matched what they were looking for.
Yeah.
But also, I think everybody might know that Ghost Adventures was there. Season 12, episode 10.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Surprise.
And I'm sure it was packed with demons. And I'm sure Zach probably got possessed at least once in every building.
We all do.
I mean, you know.
It was funny. I saw a thing on Ghost Centers that posted. He's like, it's funny. I've been doing this for 30 years.
I saw
Did you
that
see
too.
that?
Yes,
It's
Jason
funny.
Hawes.
Jason, yeah.
Mhm.
It's like, funny. I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never been possessed and nothing's ever followed me home.
Yeah, and then he's like, just saying.
Just saying.
Yeah, I had a pretty good laugh
I
at
was
that.
like, oh, slap in the face.
It's like, oh, we all know who you're talking about.
Right? So let's talk about Cookie at the episode.
Oh, yeah, that. I made a cookie. We ate it.
It was good.
It was good.
What's interesting though is normally you pull out a recipe. This one you kind of just threw it
Yeah,
together.
I just threw it together. So what I did was I just did a basic chocolate chip cookie recipe, but instead of throwing the actual chocolate chips in there, I had these Toll House. They're like white chocolate on the outside and cinnamon on the inside. So they're supposed to be like a cinnamon roll, like a frosted cinnamon roll. And then I threw in some Heath toffee bits without the chocolate on them, though.
Yeah.
Because you can buy the ones that don't have the chocolate on them. And that's all I did.
It was yummy.
They were
And
really
they're
good.
tasty. They're tasty. I have to say the cinnamon roll morsels are awful sweet. Like they taste so good, but I think it's a good thing that there's only like one or two in each cookie because
It's a lot.
it is
But
very,
it's so
very
good.
sweet.
Yeah.
You need a big old glass of milk.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
so good though.
Yeah. So they would, just that simple.
I think we've liked every one of them so far, except for one.
Yeah, that Fruity Pebble
Yeah, I could
one
go without
was-
the Fruity Pebble
Oh,
one.
that was
I
not
still liked it.
good. You're weird.
I know. We just want to say thank you, everybody, for staying with us, listening, and enjoying our episodes. And if you like what you guys have been hearing, please subscribe. Please like us and give us a review.
And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps.
And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps.
Alaka. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Wow, that's a good one.
Haven't heard that for a few years.
Well, when I spell her name, I say Alaka so that I can spell it right.
Nice.
That's why.
So between the years of 1924 and 1979, 32 people were executed.
Oh.
Oh boy. The footprints were correctly identified as a La Brea fauna, which I have no idea what that is.
That's amazing.
What is it?
Okay. All right, let me redo this one. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.